Let me ask you the simplest of questions. Why are you here? I'm here in the Arctic, one of my favorite places on Earth, the realm of the polar bear. And for me it feels like it is now with the sea ice that the journey truly begins. Our journey actually began 2 days ago.
Good morning, guys. We're literally here on day one. We've just arrived in Svalbard and I just got myself 10 minutes of drone footage of beluga whales swimming right here in the background behind me. I'm so ecstatic, I'm so excited. It's so freaking good. Happy to be here. Happy, really happy.
Seeing this footage of these mesmerizing beluga whales dancing around in the water, almost like a complicated ballet, makes me feel completely in awe of the natural beauty that exists in this world. Watching how they swim together as a group, seemingly always to have a common purpose, always together, always in the same direction, gives me an enormous amount of hope. Imagine if we humans could do the same thing. Swim together in one direction that was good for us all. Photographing the belugas from land or ship is something that is almost impossible. I have wasted countless hours trying to do this on previous trips. The results always comes out as something that can only be described as looking like a loaf of white flesh sticking above the water. But capturing this drone sequence, approximately 10 minutes of these beautiful, graceful, incredible whales swimming around in the Arctic waters. For me, this was a real highlight on this expedition. But let's not linger with the whales for too long. We have another friend that is well worth a visit. A fox hunt can be many things, right? Tonight, coming up close to 10 p.m. here in Svalbard in the Arctic. It's a beautiful night. It's a bit cold, but absolutely gorgeous. And we're heading out hunting the Arctic fox. Hunting for photography, that is, obviously. It's, they're beautiful creatures. We've spotted a couple of them on the ice. And I'm just hoping I will be able to deliver. Let's turn our eyes ever so briefly into one of the more spectacular wild animals in the Arctic fox. This is a story that I will mostly tell through images, as I was unable to capture much footage during this very, very brief encounter. It started as we spotted the Arctic fox on the shoreline in the distance, a small white dot wandering up and down the beach looking for food. We approached very, very slowly. The goal with wildlife encounters in Svalbard is always to not disturb the wildlife. This particular fox was clearly in the peak of his molting and looks very ragged, to say the least. But that raggedness also comes with a particular beauty in my eyes. He's so imperfect, and because of that, he's even more perfect. Or perhaps she, because I don't know the gender of this little animal. We were there only for maybe 10 or 20 seconds until the fox lifted its head and acknowledged us in our little zodiac, floating maybe 50, 60 or so meters out. He was just looking at us, taking us in, trying to decide whether we were a threat or not. Thankfully, this little fox decided that we were not a threat at all and continued on about his or her business, running up and down the shoreline looking for food. And as he or she did so, we managed to have a brief, maybe 2-3 minute long encounter with this absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous animal. As he or she kept running up and down the beach, we were able to capture some absolutely gorgeous photos, at least if I judge of my own library, because I thoroughly enjoyed this encounter. Towards the end of this encounter, our lovely friend the fox decided to start moving away from us in the zodiac towards a tiny little headland with this huge overhang of snow and ice above it. As he or she did so, we decided that our time was up. We didn't want to keep bothering. We didn't want to overstay our welcome with this beautiful creature. And kind of like saying goodbye, our fox turned around and I got perhaps what I consider to be my best fox picture from this journey. But enough about the fox.
In front of me right here we have our lovely group enjoying the photography from deck. This afternoon we'll launch the Zodiacs. Well, there we go, our first outing, and we got a lovely walrus sitting on an ice floe, relaxing and basking in the sun. The closest we can get to the walrus is 30 meters, and we have rangefinders with us, and we are on the mark 30 meters right now. Got a big colony, probably about 20 animals right in front of us. It's really gorgeous. The snow melting here on the spit that we are on. It is an experience to remember. Absolutely beautiful. We got a cloud-covered day, we got quite a bit of wind, but it's a beautiful day. It is like everything in the Arctic, it has to be experienced. How are you finding the walrus?
Excellent. It's a tough angle. We've got a bunch of ice in front of us, but I think the trick is to wait for one of the walruses to stick its head up amongst the crowd and get a photo of that. So it's a beautiful scene and a beautiful environment.
What do you think of photographing walruses?
I think it's a lot of waiting around and then action. One pops his head up. Good. I enjoy photographing the ones in the water. Yeah, that's good.
There's something so gratifying. Just lying here, photographing these beautiful walruses. It's like a mountain of flesh, basking in the sun.
Personally, I really enjoy photographing walruses. There is something about their lack of gracefulness on land, which is in such a stark contrast to how I see them in the water, where they are weightlessly just flowing at high speed with such elegance and ease. On land, they are just like hogs on the sand or the ice. The only way I can describe them is that they come with community first. But it doesn't seem to be community without some sort of order. In many of my shots, I seem to find a single walrus somehow being on the lookout, checking what's around them, making sure that the group is safe. In many of my photographs, one can also see a heat shimmer coming off the colony of walruses. They are so many, they are so warm that they generate their own tiny little ecosystem. Let's look at some of my favorite walrus images from this journey, starting with this one. I feel like we have a walrus communicating with the bird, and I really like that. They seem to be sharing a bond. This next image here, a lone, almost abstract walrus poking up through the water with its big tusks. I love the simplicity of this image, and I really enjoy this walrus. Same colony as before, and here we have the big tusker looking out for the sleeping group below. We often find the walruses in the group fighting amongst each other for a little bit more space, wiggling around, moving like big blobs. And as they do that, a head sticks up, kind of saying, "This is my spot. I was here first." I really enjoy having that as a subject matter. This is a great, old, huge walrus with mega tuskers coming up from the water through the ice on the beach towards the colony, slowly making his way, or her, but I do think it's a male. And here you can see him approaching the colony. You can see the heat radiating from his body. In black and white, he seems to be almost like a statue. He's radiating into the world. I find him just staggeringly beautiful. This is another image that I really enjoy, and the reason for that is obviously that we have the Great Glacier in the background. You really know what you're talking about here, an Arctic animal in its habitat. I like doing these kind of environmental portraits because you see so much, you learn so much. I've shot the walrus many times, and every time I do, it just fills me with joy and happiness, because they feel like family. They feel like an almost impossible being that shouldn't function on land, as they are so graceful in the water and so clumsy on land. But that said, they do, and it works. Another one of my favorites here with the tusks towards the sky. But I think that's enough with the mighty walrus for now. Let's instead look at the apex predator of the Arctic. I just woke up with a bang, a literal bang. Outside my window is this. Ice on the horizon. We've entered the sea ice and the home, hopefully, of the polar bears. It's around 4:30 in the morning, and the majority of the people on this ship are still sleeping. I got woken up as a big chunk of ice hit the hull of the ship, and it reverberated, not just in the ship, but also in my soul. I had to get up. I had to go take a look for myself. Dressed warmly, binoculars in hand. Well, I headed outside to see what was there. The biting cold clawed at my exposed skin, and the full Mars flew across the sky. It was a morning like any other up here, but to me, it was a morning that really filled me with a sense of life and really answered my question, why was I here? We got polar bears, 2 of them on the sea ice. It's all hands on deck, all hands on cameras. The excitement is palatable. I am freaking losing my mind. This is so good. Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so relieved that we got polar bears. I just feel humbled to be here because this is freaking amazing, eh?
It is. And you were just pointing out we've got tracks of the polar bear sliding down.
On his bum.
You were just showing us, Jonas, we've got tracks of the polar bear sliding down its bum or something, down the hill. There's a seal nearby. We've got 2 polar bears. We've got beautiful mountains in the background for environmental photos. I think we've got the winning conditions here for a great
100%.
possibility of some amazing photography.
100%. Like, we're not moving anywhere. This is the place to be right now.
Yeah, and at a minimum, just the experience and being here and being able to see it and so on is fine by me. But if we happen to get some great photos too, that'll just be a bonus.
Like, I don't want to be morbid or anything, but my dream right now is that those 2 polar bears sees that seal and then make something happen.
I think that's the circle of life and nature and how it works. And if we're here to document it, I think that'll be great.
That would be spectacular, yeah. Wow. 2 polar bears, an Arctic fox, and a seal on the ice. The beginning of a bad joke. I don't know what to say about it though. There's not an end to that joke. This here is so freaking excited. I'm just going to show you what I mean with 2 polar bears snoozing on the ice. So I got my 400 with a 1.4 teleconverter here, so 560. I'm just going to do a little bit of filming there right now on the ice. We watched these distant figures that we knew to be polar bears for many, many hours until something happened. I think we waited as long as 14 or even 16 hours without activities, just sitting on the ship, watching the polar bears, watching the seal on the ice, just seeing what would happen. Whenever you encounter polar bears, you observe, you wait, you be patient, because polar bears, particularly younger polar bears, are often curious, and they may approach the edge of the ice and thus getting closer to you instead of you trying to get closer to them. And we had a sneaky suspicion that we were looking at a mother with a juvenile, because we could see that one of the shapes in the very far distance was bigger than the other one. Initially we thought that might be a male and a female, but no, it was indeed a female and a juvenile. Guys, as we approach now, silence, okay? We're only 4 people in the ship, 5 with our good friend driving us. So let's be super quiet. Let's stay low in the ship, let's not scare it. And we want to get as much photo done as possible, so just low and quiet. A polar bear mother can nurse their cub for up to 30 months, 2.5 years. We were suspecting that this cub here was either from last year, but most likely from 2 years ago given its size, because it was almost as big as the mother. Watching and photographing the juvenile polar bear just by the edge of the ice was one of the greatest experiences on this expedition in Svalbard. Perhaps it was even my best polar bear experience ever in my life. We had probably around an hour or so, just completely uninterrupted, undisturbed. We were just floating in our zodiacs, about 80 to 100 meters or so away from land. There was no wind, our engines were off. The polar bears were completely undisturbed by our presence. And that is something that is so visible in the images. Mama bear was just sleeping in the distance, and our beautiful cub was jumping in and out of the water, running up and down the ice, pretending to hunt, learning what it is like to be a polar bear. This is one of my favorite shots of the juvenile. I see a smile in the polar bear, a beautiful smile. And I think that kind of reflects my own emotions, or I'm putting my own emotions on this juvenile polar bear. But it was so playful, it was so happy, and I can see what almost looks like a smile on its face, and I really want to believe that it was there. Our beautiful juvenile found some protruding eyes and did some posing for us, which was absolutely gorgeous. Next to where it's standing on this image here, there was a little hole in the ice, and he kept jumping in, climbing out, jumping in, climbing out. I caught this photograph of the juvenile jumping into the hole and climbing out. I love how almost hidden and secret it is. We can see the ears, the eyes, and the snout just above the eyes, and the rest is just hidden in the water. This here is for sure one of my absolute favorite images of a polar bear that I've ever captured. The minimalism is so everything. It's obviously framed and shot as an environmental because of the atmospheric conditions with the fog and the snow and the low midnight light. Well, it became like this, and I really enjoy it. Another photograph of the juvenile. Here I'm kind of imagining it trying to be big and bold and angry, roaring across the ice, learning how to be intimidating. Another absolutely pleasant shot. A shot here where you can see the mother and the cub. You can see that the mother is clearly colored, and they're doing that to track the activities of the polar bears and to learn more about how they behave in the Arctic. Another image that I'm so pleased with from this expedition, where we can see the polar bear jumping into the water, and I managed to freeze a moment where it's kind of like 20% submerged. We have the ears still sticking up, we have the paws gone, the front paws that is, and the butt is in the air, and I kind of imagine this polar bear looking underwater saying, hello, what's going on, who's there? A playful image in my view. Here we have a shot of the mother bear staring directly into the zodiac where I was sitting with my camera. It was not a moment where I felt she was too disturbed, because this was a pose that she held only for a second before she decided that we were no threat, and she walked away. So I do not believe that this mother were at all disturbed by our presence. She noticed our presence, but I don't think she was disturbed by it, because this was but a fleeting moment. The mother bear walking by the side of the ice, checking us out and deciding that we were not worth her energy or her worries. She turned swiftly around, showed us her derriere and her paw. You can see that the skin on the paw is completely black, because if you were to shave a polar bear, you would notice that its skin is actually completely black. When it sticks out its tongue, you can also see that it's black, and it does that quite often, which is quite interesting. I love watching this paw print walking away, and it reminds me of a very famous shot of a polar bear walking away, shot by David Yarrow, which I think was in Svalbard too, but I might be wrong about that. Hey Thomas, have you enjoyed this?
Oh, incredible.
Hasn't it been like absolutely amazing?
Could we have asked for better conditions?
No. Oh, absolutely gorgeous. I just want to take it all in for a few seconds.
Yesterday did Walrus.
I'm not dead, just trying to take in all this. A beautiful day, beautiful weather, beautiful waters in front of us. Just take it all in and process it. And maybe have a nap too.